everyone. So I'm here to present actually the research that one of the PhD students that we supervise is carrying out, Carmem Saito. Unfortunately, she couldn't present, so I hope I will do justice to her work. So we will be talking about the research that Carmen is leading on, exploring cultures of consumption, and particularly looking at digital habits of consumption, and thinking about new methodologies that might help us to overcome some of the behaviors that we are facing today. So we know that sustainable fashion as a concept is constantly being challenged, and together with conscious consumption practices that dominate the sustainability narratives around the industry, this reflection on sustainability and consumer practices really points us to the limits of consumer agency, and really calls us to think about how can we have more systemic action to address the challenges that consumers are facing in being more responsibly consuming, and thinking about how we can change consumer practices. This continues to be a key challenge and a key point of emphasis in research to many sustainability strategies and research at present. There's also a growing interest in exploring how technology may aid in transition efforts to mediate consumer interactions, and discussion supporting the argument that digital technologies will play a key role in providing solutions to understand, change, and perhaps reduce consumption patterns. So here in the picture, we have the clueless digital wardrobe, which is something that since the 90s, apparently we've been dreaming of. But only nowadays, these technologies are starting to reach to the consumer. So this paper maps the field of contemporary online fashion consumption, and also accounts for how it's been developing, and questioning how the priority has been given to advancing research in terms of technical support and also quantitative approaches to bring consumer feedback, but much more through data metrics and this kind of things. Whereas more relational approaches, or even the tacit knowledge of consumers, there's not such a big emphasis in bringing about. So we did examine through evaluating just cases and literature how digital retail tools prioritize then addressing these technical challenges around reproducing what consumers of today experience when they are shopping in real life, instead of thinking about what is new that the digital could offer in terms of consumption, and that could be more productive if we think about sustainability. So fashion and consumption are closely linked. As I said, in real life, forms of fashion consumption at the moment, unfortunately, are not sustainable. And evidence also shows that digitalization is contributing to the growth of the industry. For example, we saw with the pandemic that shopping has increased, and particularly digitally, there was a growth that, as said in the literature, was of 5 years in one. So there is a need to change this paradigm if we want to consume more sustainably. But as also I was pointing out before, consumers have been historically and systematically excluded from the way consumption is designed. So new tools must support how consumers can be more agents and more actively engaged in participating in this transformation. So how, for example, how could we use digital tools to promote consumers to create maybe platforms and channels to questioning more, or even slowing down consumption or diversifying the types of pleasure they can get from garments. So fashion and consumption theories, they're very close to each other. And given how closely tied these theories are, it's curious that formalizing fashion consumption digitally is such a difficult path. We start to see some new trends now after the pandemic, where people start to have a bit more access to dressing in digital worlds, something that was before more part of a gaming industry with skins, for example. But it still is a complicated area, and it's, in essence, it's a difficult challenge for industry to frame what this digital consumption could be. And surely the distance that is imposed by the virtuality of digital shopping between the cloth and body presents a significant barrier, right? Because people have a very strong imprint of how wearing happens with the clothes getting in contact with the skin. So how to transform this experience in the digital is a big challenge. In the other hand, also we know that even in brick and mortar shops, it's not uncommon that people will buy things because the environment stimulates this, or even because just for the pleasure of the newness, for example. So there are lots of challenges in rethinking how consumption could be reframed. And this also brings us to the terminology, which is quite complex in this space. It's difficult to define who people are in fashion consumption. So we have the several different ways that people are addressed in the literature as fashion consumer, fashion users, fashion wearers, or even fashion victims, fashion slaves. But broadly, we know that this is also an issue in sustainability. That most of the publications and the research try to slowly phase out the use of the word consumer and start to emphasize the words, for example, like citizens or custodians, and thinking about like a much more active way of addressing people in a way that would also encourage different types of behaviors. So really pushing towards behavior change. But this is still a very gray zone where some other authors like Gonzato and Van Amstel make a compelling case for actually continue to use the word consumer intentionally to provoke more reflection on how much are we allowing people to have a voice and to change the system like we are so much expressing the need for. So sustainability efforts in fashion, they remain largely uncoordinated and they are technically oriented. Theories in design for sustainability and environmental studies could provide interesting paths for more relational exploration. So how can we bring people as more active or agents in this transition? And particularly if we think about embodied and liberation theories, there are some promising approaches to engage consumers as in this transformation as agents of transition strategies. So in this paper, we propose this concept of mimicking to articulate these efforts of simulating the reality and to start to critically reflect with people on how such practices are actually contributing to maintaining and reproducing the current status quo of unsustainable fashion consumption, and also how the systems and their supporting technologies are all directed towards this kind of practice. So we know that when it comes to digital solutions, a lot of the challenges or even the efforts are focused on trying to make the experience of fashion just a mirror of what happens in real life. And even if we think about as a parallel what happens in materials research, a lot of the times we also are stuck with this paradigm of mimicking. So, for example, the leather substitutes, which are now there's a lot of discussion around should they be called leather alternatives or not, because this really shows that this is how technology research has been pushing for this practices of mimicking and mimicking as a goal. But for sustainability, this presents some challenges because by bringing out those solutions that simply replace what we are already used to do, we don't question our practices. And so there could be like this misperception that we can just continue operating in the same way. So the author, Tony Fry, he presents unsustainability as a condition that is something that inhibits us from having a future. So, and he proposes that design, because it's so based on project making and solutions, creates a little bit of this problem of unsustainability. So for him, mimicking, for example, is a design tool which helps to promote unsustainability and this problem of almost like presenting a challenge to our future, rather than bringing completely out of the box thinking that could cause some disruption to the systems, and very much welcome disruptions. So to counter this, what Tony Fry proposes is that we should push for methodologies that allow much more imagination, and also, as a way to foreground the need for new kinds of knowledge. We have brought on board also some literature from the Global South, particularly Brazil. And Paulo Freire, he identifies hopelessness as something that is unnatural to human beings, because it's really denying dreams and utopias and blocks what could be this disruptive changes that can bring about transformation. So for Paulo Freire, hope can be learned and can be enacted through a process of critical conscientization. So we bring this theory as a counterpoint to the a bit hopelessness that we saw in Tony Fry's writings. And the additional theory that we identified as potentially a way out for this is the fabulation as a new path for creation. So fabulation is a type of practice that was proposed by Donna Haraway and other authors such as Erin Manning or Saadia Hartman. And for what they propose is that fabulation is a speculation, but a pragmatic speculation. Because what they say is that with fabulation, we do things, be them ideas or actions, and it's really about speculating and giving voice and visibility to things that might not be so obvious or technical solutions. So it really deals with potential. So Christiane Greiner, one of the authors in this paper, in other research previously, elaborated on this concept, developing the hypothesis that fabulation can be a way of dealing with otherness as well, which is a complete opposite of mimicking. And she proposes otherness as a state of creation. So instead of eliminating the differences and trying to keep always the sameness or the mimicking, fabulation could be a way of using otherness or differences as a tool to open new paths for creation. So she proposes this as a tool to try to understand or to accommodate the unknown, and also to present the untold or the erased stories and connect us to the past, but also to future potentials. So we see fabulating as our way forward. We propose that fabulation provides a creative framework for researchers and designers to overcome the mimicking practices and engage in more radical imagination. Questions of agency, privacy, rights, ownership are some of the issues that might emerge. And it also promotes various ways in which we can engage in fashion consumption. So what we conclude with our paper is that this is only a theoretical step, but we've been weaving different theoretical approaches to reach to this proposition. But we will be following up on this research with further studies with participatory approaches to bring fabulation as a way to engage consumers in creating how they imagine the future consumption to look like in more sustainable ways. So, thank you.